Hello and welcome to the program. I am Suren. Jalaluddin Rumi once said, "When you dance, the whole universe dances." There are, as it is currently considered, and much written about, mainly two distinct traits that seem to distinguish humans from other life forms. Even animals, who are the humans' closest evolutionary relatives, so it is believed, since the days of Darwin, and are organic to the way we humans live and feel. The very first issue is most certainly our own self-consciousness. However, we know that the other species, other than human beings, are also able to think and learn, feel and remember. But only humans and human beings seem to reflect, to think about thinking, and learn about learning, to conjure up an imaginary future and memories of a carefully edited past, to form their own emotions and to learn from their own dreams. This means that we create our own dreams. And this self-consciousness means we are able to make decisions based on the way we imagine ourselves to be and our links with other species. We can also weigh our actions for their impact on the, shall we say, seventh generation yet to come, as Native American leaders are trained to do, or to jeopardize our descendants by endangering the ecosystem for our immediate gain. We can choose not to give birth to a child in order to give birth to ourselves, to have children to enhance our sense of self, or to love other people's children as if they were our own. We may also enjoy sexual intimacy with those of our own class and kind, race or gender, or be drawn to a difference. We may sweep before we walk, lest we tread on one living thing, or build doomsday weapons, and believe in both cases their actions are necessary to peace. We may feel secure and prosperous with autonomy and simple living, or crave power and possessions. Our range of possibilities is almost infinite. In the short run, each self-conscious choice influences behavior. Our own brain synapses and sends out ripples of change to those around us. In the very long run, however, it can affect the environment of our generation, our descendants, our species, the adaptation of their behavior and brains, the recurrence of certain genes, and ultimately, yes, evolution itself. The second trait that distinguishes us from other living creatures, in degree if not in kind, is our adaptability. Though we cannot yet regenerate all our cells like a starfish, or hibernate through foodless winters like a bear, our ability to adapt to the demands of our environment and vice versa has given us protein nature. more than any other species, Homo sapiens can be thrust into new environments, adapt, meet different conditions and challenges, adapt again, and thrive. A flexibility that has saved us from extinction and allowed our evolution to continue. Put together, these human traits of self-consciousness and adaptability create a spiral of cause and effect and cause, that transform the immediate polarized nature versus nurture argument into a question only of time frame. Shall we focus on the existing egg or future chicken? If we pull back from the short-term either or view and look at long spiral, we will see humans adapting to what exists, imagining new environments, influencing what will exist, and then adapting to what they have created out of a unique combination of the actual and the imaginary. The important difference between biological determinists and cultural determinists is not who is right and who is wrong, but whose prophecy becomes self-fulfilling. We choose to dampen our hopes, preserving a current order, as if almost everything is determined by biology. And then again, why not try? Or we can kindle the flames of hope and become agents of change. If anything might be affected by culture, again, why not try? The choice is between pessimists and optimists. It is also between those who find security in the current order and those who want to change it. We see them to dream of a world in which no one is born into a hierarchy. Probably has an optimist looking only two areas of research for facts that inspire our vision, whatever it could be, and we may discover two new bodies of knowledge to inspire the most pessimistic imagination. Primarily, the lessons drawn are from tragedy. For instance, that after an internal process measurable in milliseconds and based on your own desire and the needs of the situation at hand, as the psychologist Gloria Steinem also considers. Let me quote. 1. Change your brain's right or left hemisphere dominance to the opposite side and back again, regardless of your biological sex or cultural gender. 2. Change your handwriting and personal signature for different roles and needs, and also, rightfully, and perform other tasks with your non-dominant hand. 3. Raise or lower your pulse rate, blood pressure, temperature, level of oxygen need, and thresholds of pain and pleasure. 4. Eliminate an allergic reaction to an environmental factor that is healthy or inevitable, or create an allergic reaction to a factor you want to avoid. 5. Re-enter and re-experience your mind's stored memories of the past as if they were happening in the present. 6. Call up your body's somatic memory of everything that has happened to it with such clarity that ghosts of the past, wounds and bruises reappear on your skin in minutes and then slowly disappear as you leave the memory. 7. Activate visions of a past of future state of health, and so powerful that they can speed the healing of current wounds, measurably strengthen the immune system, and give you access at any time to the superhuman abilities usually reserved for emergencies. 8. Adjust your eyesight to your nearsighted, farsighted, or normal state, depending on your task, with such physical impact on the eye's curvature that an optometrist examining you would write you an entirely different lens prescription. 9. Change voice depth and timbre, mannerisms, grammar, accent, facial muscle patterns, body language, physical style, and even darken the color of your eyes. Or change them so totally that an unwitting observer would assume you to be of a different ethnicity, age, race, class, or gender from one moment to the next. 10. Change your response to medication, or achieve that medication's result without taking it, and thus have all the benefits of a tranquilizer, sleeping pill, APA, or anesthetic, but none of the side effects. 11. Heighten or lessen sexual desire, and widen or narrow the range of those people for whom you feel it. 12. Adjust your body's response to lunar and diurnal cycles. 13. Become maximally effective and tuned in to various challenges: work, parenting, dancing, a back rub, your own creativity, a friend's need, your immediate problems, future dreams, by summoning up that part of yourself that contains exactly the appropriate sensitivities and strengths. 14. Bring into one true self the strengths of all the selves you have ever been in every setting and situation from infancy till now. All of these abilities have been demonstrated and verified through a wide variety of double-blind tests, brain scanning, and other objective techniques in people who have what is called multiple personality disorder, or MTD, as it is now known. MPD is almost always the result or frequent statistical, erratic, and uncontrollable abuse in childhood by someone whom the child was dependent. Abuse so intolerable. The children learn to disassociate from it through a form of self-hypnosis. Yeah. And so escape, which they know not to escape into, and how to a different person who does not feel the pain. Having once split off from the core personality, this alteration begins to acquire a separate life history, complete with distinctive mannerisms, behaviors, and social relationships, almost as if it were a person born at the moment of splitting. One's disability to disassociate has proven to be a valuable way of surviving and dealing with the world. Alters continue to be born to meet different needs and demands. By adulthood, one person may comprise as many as a dozen completely different personalities. When much higher numbers are reported, they probably include fragments, partial personalities that have specific purposes but not substantial life histories. And these personalities are so different that they can convince unwitting people of their reality. Since the person suffering from this splitting often experiences periods out of his or her host personality as memory loss. This is one of the most frightening examples of a survival mechanism that becomes a terrifying prison. This was the phenomenon which is being born of suffering that is literally intolerable. What began as a grim gift renders its victims vulnerable to triggers the environment over which they have no control. So splintered is a true self that there is no overarching consciousness. The process of treatment is the process of integration. It takes great courage on the part of the survivor, empathetic patience from professionals, and an average of 3 to 5 years. But the prognosis for integrating and healing is good. That in itself is a testimony to human possibilities. What we have not even begun to consider is what would happen if the rest of humanity could acquire, for positive reasons, the abilities those accidental prophets have learned for negative ones. If such extraordinary abilities can be summoned to help survive the worst of human situations, they are also there to create the best. What if we could harness this unbelievable potential of body and mind? Question mark. Commonly, for instance, for women to contain one or more personalities, who conceive of themselves as male and behave convincingly as males, and for men to have one or several personalities who seem completely female in every way except the biological one. What if we could each gain access to the full range of human qualities that lie suppressed within us? That is a question to ponder on. The list of human abilities with which this discussion of MPD began is only a hint of the real possibilities. People in different alters can change movement, a musical or linguistic talent that is concealed to the host personality, have 2 or even 3 menstrual cycles in the same body, for instance, and handle social and physical tasks of which they literally do not think themselves capable. We need to face this effect of what the future could hold and what each of us could become, and is limited mainly by what we believe. The second source of knowledge to fire our imaginations has become available to us because of all our new abilities to the living brain. After centuries of theorizing about brain function from information based on autopsies, the effects of brain tumors and injuries, or extrapolations from tests on laboratory animals, new technologies have allowed us to learn more about the workings of our own minds in these past decades than in all of previous human history, and we have just begun. One thing we know is that whatever the contribution of genetics make to our mental abilities, the brain we are born with is not the brain we are destined to have for life. 15% of brain growth occurs before birth. 85% takes place afterwards. Indeed, it is important cell to cell. Synaptic connections are so staggering that their number and variable complexity that they could not be dictated by genetic blueprint alone. What takes place after birth in response to the stimuli ingested through all five senses completes the brain's growth. This long post-birth period of development, I should say, is what makes us so uniquely adaptable and flexible, and also vulnerable to our environment. Unlike other animals, who have far shorter periods of early growth and dependency, a human infant's brain more than doubles in size during the first year of life, almost doubles again in the next 3 years, and continues growing for a decade. Its basic structural development is not complete until around the time of puberty, but even then, its limits are not set. Though it was previously assumed that the brain and nervous system were hardwired, their abilities programmed in much the same way that a computer is, with one group of cells being dedicated to short-term memory, a second to auditory function, and a third to tactile recognition, fourth to visualization, and so forth. We now know that the brain is full of pickup systems, that brain cells continue throughout our lives to generate new connections or synapses between them, and the number of complexity of these synapses has an enormous effect on mental capacity. In the last years, refined methods of structural measurements and the new ability to measure electrical activity, blood flow, and metabolism of glucose in the living, working brain have given us a greater understanding of the workings of the forebrain, that part of the cortex, uncommitted to motor or sensory functions, and therefore available for such higher mental processes as language and capacity for future planning. Old fatalistic assumptions are being cast aside, and new hopes are being born. Development of early malnutrition was once thought to be permanent. For instance, recent experience or experiments have shown that some of it is recoverable. It is as if our body is up growth potential, waiting for a chance to make up for losses. In the case of accidents that irreversibly damage one hemisphere of the brain, the other hemisphere may take over its functions, especially if the injury occurs before brain programming has reached its adult stage. In spite of theories of right brain, left brain specialization, each hemisphere acts as a potential backup system for the other. The biggest danger of loss is not the loss itself, but the idea that it is absolute and irreversible. Perhaps it is true that after illness or trauma, we never get back to normal. Instead, we move on to a new and stronger normal, just as antibodies protect us against getting an infection twice. Our body protects itself and may grow even stronger. In the same way, we may emerge from times of traumatic worthlessness and low esteem or self-esteem with an increased immunity to similar assaults, a strong sense of ourselves, and a better defense against future challenges. It is a law of nature that transforms itself. Nothing is destroyed. For us, as part of nature, nothing is wasted. Now, we once thought that the loss of something like 100,000 cells each day made mental deterioration inevitable. But even after the brain has attained its maximal size and structure, signals from the body and the environment are still constantly changing it. The number of neurons, the adult brain remains fixed. The snaps or synapses between them keep proliferating to a greater or lesser extent, depending on the uses to which we put our brains. Groups of existing synapses are strengthened in favor of those made necessary by stimulus. The neurons can become connected and reconnected in an almost infinite number of ways. The enriched environments, even at the end of their natural lifespan, have been shown to grow more synapses than those who live in impoverished environments. The number and complexity of synapses, these electrically processed into neural connections, makes possible mental operations of extraordinary sophistication. The idea that our brains are ever subject to improving, diversifying, my goodness, finally I got it, and sharpening, if we will only believe in them enough to stimulate them, is good news for everybody. Perhaps we should have known all this from negative examples. Prisoners who were kept in dark, isolated cells for long periods have ended up with impaired eyesight and sense of time. Brainwashing and reprogramming different beliefs and personality traits, even in adults, by forcing the reinterpretation of memories and beliefs in which our sense of self depends, and also forcing the memorization of large quantities of new information. Compelled by regimentation, fatigue, pain, fear, or any other stress to undertake both tasks at once, the brain's synaptic patterns change and deteriorate. Even a few days in captivity have produced such consistent symptoms in political hostages from different backgrounds that this constellation of traits has come to be called the Stockholm Syndrome. Dependency, passivity, approval seeking, empathy with captures, sympathy with their cause, and gratitude to those who took them prisoner in the first place and then became their only support. It is a syndrome multiplied in victims of domestic violence. We have less sense of alternatives, and over a much longer period of time, it remains. The alternative to the kind of repair and growth we have been talking about is shutting down, a state of disbelief in our abilities that is the negative side of our adaptability. When we are deprived of the ability to stretch our boundaries and capabilities, we can exist in an almost hibernating state, semi-alive, if you like, with all but our survivalist abilities on hold, and the feeling of being cold and alone, cut off from nature and the universe. But when our talents are required and rewarded, we can stretch our abilities, use the energy of self-esteem to activate the unique mix of universal human traits each possess, and uncover a microcosm of the universe within ourselves. Depending on a myriad of choices and circumstances that have been made by us and for us, we wired somewhere along this last continue each day. Self-esteem starts out as a personal blessing, but it becomes nothing less than an evolutionary force. Even our metaphoric vision, or how our minds work, changes. When we were exploring other continents, our brain was seen as a phrenology. Industrialization, our imaginary or imagery for it became a machine as technology developed. A telephone system became the prevailing metaphor with the invention of artificial intelligence. We too became a kind of giant celestial computer. Now we like the brain to hologram that. If one part is damaged, retaining the entire image in every other part. That too is probably limited. But at least it comes closer to the reality of nature, in which each leaf contains the genetic reality of the whole plant, and each of our cells contains the enough DNA information to replicate our whole body. What we are gradually learning is an earlier mystical view that was covered over by reductionist paradigms. We are the universe in microcosm, and the universe is in each of us in microcosm. If we have respect for one, how can we fail to have respect for the other? Think of the imagery in a parable from the Flower Garland Sutra. The heaven of Indra. There is said to be a network of pearls, so arranged that if you look at one, you see all the others reflected in it. In the same way, each object in the world is not merely itself, but involves every other object, and in fact is every other object. Just as each cell contains our whole being, so each thought and dream contains our whole self also. If our dreams were not already real with us, we could not even dream them. Sometimes Gloria writes, when I enter a familiar room or street, I think I see a past self walking towards me. She cannot see me in the future, but I can see her very clearly. She runs past me, worried about being late for an appointment she doesn't want to go to. She sits at a restaurant table in tears of anger, arguing with the wrong lover. She strides toward me in the jeans and wine-red suede boots she wore for a decade, and I can remember the exact feel of those boots on my feet. She sits in a newspaper boardroom with the sort of powerful men who undermine her confidence the most, trying to persuade them to support a law that women badly need, and fails. She's a ghost in the lobby or office building that she had all the women of MS magazine walked through for so many years. She rushes towards me outside lecture hall, talking, laughing, full of optimism. A tall and round-faced 12-year-old walks with me through a sunny street, looking in shop windows, enjoying my ice cream cone, and feeling remarkably happy. We are indeed many selves. Not long ago, a child within us who needed tenderness and inclusion, but the person we were last year wanted to be yesterday, tried to become in one job or in one winter, in one love affair or in one house, where even now we can close our eyes and smell the rooms. What brings together these ever-shifting selves of infinity reactions and returning is this: there is always one true inner voice. With that, this episode ends here and now. We shall meet again by the next episode. In the meantime, please like and subscribe to the program and recommend it to others if you like. That would be nice. And so, keep smiling and be happy. Thank you.